Here we go. It is podcasting time. Colin Thomas is here from WeWillFixIt and Essential Maintenance Dubai. We are talking DIY. We're going to talk air conditioning. We're going to talk water tanks. We're coming to you from the Rove Hotel downtown Dubai. We're on video, so if you're watching us on video, great to have you here. We do shorts. We do a long version. I like to say we've got something for everyone. My brother Joey Woo Woo, he's not so a big fan of the shorts, only because he then has to scroll and keep loading up more shorts. And I said, make a playlist, dude.
See, that's obvious, but I'm not sure I can do that. Yeah, so, I get you.
So but I came up with a great thing for shorts, and the reason they're being made. You ever walk into a mall, or you go into where there's a lot of public washrooms? The number of people on their phones in those washrooms, whether they're standing up or sitting down, is incredible. And so I figure the shorts, which are 3 to 5 minutes long, are serving a purpose to keep someone entertained while they're doing their business.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning of that one, James. Do I regularly hang out in public toilets? No, sorry. If I'm going in a public toilet, I've normally got a child attached to me. So my aim is to get in and out without them touching anything, without damaging anything, and that's it. I've not got time for a phone. But if you found your little demographic, your little niche, then I'm over the moon for you.
Well, because what I'm thinking now is because more than 5 times in the last week, I've heard people in stalls clearly watching or listening to something. So I'm going to put the Potaholics link up on the door.
Oh, great!
So that when they're sitting there, I say, "What can I scroll to?" It's like, here you go.
You could just put it under the stall. That would be freaky, wouldn't it?
Just push the phones underneath. Here you go. Leave it when you're done. I'll sanitize her.
Oh, that's genius. Well, there is our new marketing campaign.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the taglines, and none of them are good.
No, don't go there, James.
But the university toilets, not that I would take my phone in there and use it, but they have a little shelf that's sitting right beside the toilet that has
with a charge jack.
I wish it did have a charge jack.
Then you'd use it. Oh man!
So,
we haven't done this start before.
No,
this is unique.
This is a good one. We're going to talk air conditioning, and that's the goal here today. But before we get there, I've got to share with you my latest maintenance thing. We're at 3 visits so far, and it's still not resolved.
Wonderful. Tell me I'm not involved.
No, you're not involved.
Oh, thank God.
and I'm gonna give like a little spoiler. As much as sometimes these gentlemen who actually have a van it's well equipped, because I do go and take a look. It was a little bit like a Ringling Brothers Barnum & Bailey circus the last time they came, because the van is full of stuff, but there were also 5 guys. And I've been trying to figure out where the 5 guys, and there were no fries, where the 5 guys, always willing to market for you on the podcast.
5 guys, the best burgers in town.
There you go. 5 guys, we will even podcast from the restaurant. There we go. That would be fun.
If you feed us.
That would just be so wrong, right? Hold on a second. Oh, yeah.
I think that's so right, James. Stop talking this down. Love a 5 guys.
Okay, we could do that. Murdiff?
I could do any of them. I want to do murder fish and chips one day.
Oh, you know what? I thought it had closed down. So
I need some promotion, James.
So I went by the other day because they've really built up that mall, and not only is Murder Fish and Chips still open, did I mention to you that they have a meal plan?
You did actually. Yeah. I'd forgotten about that.
I have no idea what's on that, but that was the first thing I saw. But the other thing I did notice is I was standing there looking at the Murder Fish and Chips, the Chippies menu, and this is one of the original Chippies in the city.
Oh yeah.
And their price, so I also get, menus in the doorway. Yeah. Their price is very, very good. Like, we're talking, why wouldn't you order fish and chips from them?
Do you know, I'm still on that meal plan. And I'm trying to think about the healthy variety that they must be able to offer.
half fried fish. So you only
no. You've got cod, haven't you? Cod for Mondays. Oh no, we need some variety. Let's give them haddock tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh no. What do we do for Wednesday? Oh, pollock.
Can you?
Oh, there's a healthy plan for them.
And we're going to use canola oil because that's good for your heart.
Absolutely. The mushy peas, that comes off the 5 a day as long as they eat 5 of them. Oh man,
I don't know. I've got to go see what it is. It's
Well, no, I'd love to do a little broadcast in there. I'll definitely come.
Okay, we got to figure that out.
I
mean, and look, both of those are right by my house, so it's like
perfect.
It's really easy.
Yeah, let's do that.
That'd be a lot of fun.
Oh, I really enjoy that.
I don't even know if they do breakfast. They might even. But there's, the Shakeout Carac is right outside there too. So
to be fair, there's some things in life you just got to prioritize. So you tell me when to go there, and I'll be there. Simple as that.
All right. So back to the dilemma here. Here's what happened.
Oh, maintenance again. I keep forgetting this podcast about maintenance.
So I'm talking about the maintenance guys who are coming to my place, who for the most part are pretty good. Anything where I don't want to have a headache, I always call you guys.
Yeah.
And which is interesting because my neighbor would go, "Why are you doing that?" I said, "Well, I don't want to have the headache." And some things, because there is the maintenance company that services the villa, if I'm willing to have the headache, I will let it go. So this one, I'm sitting down at the barbecue. By the way, barbecue season is open in the UAE. So
I agree.
I am barbecuing up a storm. And I've watered the grass because we do have some grass. So I've watered the grass and, done the job that any maintenance person would do, water the tiles and the bricks as well, cleaning some of the sand off. It's just, that's always going to the front to water a tree. And I notice there's a little pool of water. And I'm going, hold on a second. The pool of water's coming through the drainage that comes off the roof.
Oh, lovely.
That's what I said. Oh, lovely. And I'm going, oh. So I climb up on the roof and I'm thinking, all of the different things that could go wrong. First of all, the guys had fixed a pipe a little while ago, so I thought, I hope it didn't break. And but it wasn't a lot of water either, so I was a little concerned, but I wasn't so concerned because. So
well, if you imagine a little bit of water at ground level, how has it got there? Well, the only way a little bit of water on ground level can be is quite a lot of water on your roof.
Yeah. So I climb up onto the roof. And I instantly see that, oh, yes, there is a little bit of a stream coming towards the drain. And I walk around the backside of my rooftop water tank. And the backside of the rooftop water tank has, at the bottom, a drainage valve. And the drain, I know it's a weird one because
that is a weird one
because the rooftop water tank on the roof next door, because there's just a little 2-foot wall, so doesn't have one of these, but mine does.
Okay.
And keep in mind, this water tank is 22 years old.
Yes,
it's not covered. It's in direct sunlight, and this drainage valve is in the direction of anything after noon is hitting that side of the tank.
Got you.
The tank is definitely degrading, the outside of the tank. And at the bottom where this little valve is, there's a crack in the tank. Just a small crack.
Okay.
But a crack nonetheless, and that's where water is starting to leak from.
Right.
So I call up the guys. First visit, they come and take a look. First of all, they show up at 9 o'clock at night. And I'm going, dude.
Seriously?
Yeah, seriously. I was like, we just want to take a look and see, if it's what it is. And like, you're not fixing anything at night. Like, it's not that bad of a leak. It's bad. I want it fixed, but you're not fixing it at 9 o'clock at night. But anyway, so they climb up and they take a look because, we all know the deal. They got to do the recce. I worked for the city. That was the thing. 7:30 in the morning, you start work. 5 guys in a truck. You go take a look at the job for an hour. Then you go have breakfast. Then you go get the tools. Then but if you get there by 11, you're well on track, right?
Well, no, it's lunchtime then.
Yeah. So they leave. A day later, another 2 guys come.
Different guys. Of course.
And I'm going, but the other guys already came. Oh, we need to take a look. It's like, all right. So they go up, and the guy takes a look, and he comes down and goes, yeah, it's definitely got a crack.
It's a crack.
It's like,
oh, well done, you.
It's like,
you've aced it. At least now we know.
Yeah. So I'm going, so I said, so what do you think? Well, first of all, your tank's full of water. We're going to have to take the water out. I was like, okay, yeah, I get that. And what are you thinking? And he says, I'm thinking we're going to make a larger hole, put the ceiling stuff in, put the nice ceiling in it, put another valve in. I'm going, I said, first of all, it's already a big valve. I said, second of all, it's a brittle tank. So you're going to cut where there's already a crack that's already got a weakness. I'm not so sure that, and I said, just look at the tank. Like this, I mean, the tank could live forever probably, but because of this crack, I said, I don't know if that's a good thing. So I suggest the bodge job.
Oh, great.
Well, I'm just thinking, look, I know that over at Ace, you can buy this putty that you mix the two things together. The bodge job, I know. But you can, and I said,
James, how many times have we discussed bodges?
I'm suggesting the bodge job to the maintenance guys, thinking they're going to jump on I'm saying, just even in a temporary fix, we get this kind of putty stuff, we put it on, it'll at least seal it. So we can't do that.
Oh, hallelujah.
I know. I'm thinking, they're looking at me going, they're looking at me
He's being paid by the hour.
Like I'm trying
There's something going on here.
He's looking at me like I'm trying to set them up. I think he listens to the podcast.
Then maybe that's it.
He's thinking this guy's trying to set me up. He wants me to do half-ass work. And so he refuses. And I say, put some caulking around it then. Just something to abate it. No. And so he's looking there and he says, we could do this. I'm saying, really? Like I said, let's just be logical here for a second. And I'm being nice. I don't even get angry. I said, but if we cut it, what's the chance that this crack or this weakness is just going to come back or it's going to get bigger? And now you've taken all the water out and you and I both know it's going to take days to get another tank.
Yep.
Not to mention you got to get it on the roof.
Yes.
And I mean, I know how you're going to do it, and the guy goes, yeah. So then the other guys come yesterday to measure the tank because they're going to replace the tank.
Right.
Now, here's where it gets interesting. So this is good. So now they're going to replace the tank. Who knows when? Could be tomorrow. Could be the day after. Could be, I don't know.
Could be a month.
I think it'll be sooner than later.
Oh, okay. That's good. Unexpected.
But I get home last night. They're sitting out front of my house. They didn't even call. I mean, I'm going, what if I wasn't coming home from work at this hour?
You would happily sit here till midnight.
Clearly.
Okay.
Anyway, so they measured the tank, and the next step will be to replace the tank, which I'm slightly worried about. Only I'm wondering how they're going to get the tank onto the roof, if they're going to have a truck with a crane, or if they're going to hoist it up with rope.
Okay. Right. Let's now see if we can fill in a couple of gaps.
Okay.
So, first of all, tanks. There are two different types of tanks here in the UAE, fiberglass or plastic.
Yeah, this one's plastic.
Okay. The fiberglass ones are relatively easy to repair on the basis that simply you can use fiberglass matting and actually make a really decent repair of it. The plastic ones are almost unrepairable.
There you go.
And also, bizarrely, they don't tend to go brittle. So that side of things is kind of logical. However, the suggestion that you can take out, I'm guessing it'll be a 1 inch or 1 1/4, something like that.
Yeah, it's a one. It's a big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the idea would be if you had a crack in it, you'd need to go to 2 inch.
Yeah.
But to be able to do that effectively, you need to have a central location to be able to get a perfectly round hole that will then seal effectively.
Yeah.
Chances of doing that somewhere between never going to happen and not.
And I think he realized that too.
Maybe that's it. So that's kind of a good step. Next, so I think the end decision of replacement is a very good one.
Yeah.
The bodge job.
Come on, I still think I'm going to go to Ace, One Store, Many Lifestyles. Really looking forward to working with you. We could podcast.
Ace has got a cafe in Festival City.
Why aren't we there?
Ace Hardware,
one
the
store.
best hardware store in Dubai.
In the world.
Of course. Silly me, North America. Oh, we've got it all going on here, haven't we?
You see,
Wait. What about SpeedX? SpeedX, the best store in the UAE.
There we go.
Yeah, we've got it.
And we podcast from right on one of the walkways in there.
Well, they've got the whole the outdoor seating area, haven't they?
I don't know.
They do on the one on Shakeside Road.
Oh, okay. I never go to that one.
Okay. Well, they do. So we can literally just chill out there. Maybe a couple of sun lounges. I bet they could arrange some mojitos if we asked for it. After all, it is 8:15 in the morning.
Of course.
Yeah. This is all working out perfectly now.
There we go.
I can't even remember where we were. Oh, yes, I remember the bodge.
So I am certain that I get this putty. You get it, comes in two little strands. You mix it together. It works. I see it on the package. It works underwater, works in water, works around water.
Yeah, it does.
And it gets nice. For a temporary fix, don't you think it would work?
No. In fact, I know it wouldn't work because we have had to come to replace these tanks when that bodge has been attempted, and Excuse me, I kind of had this this failure on my tank, so I used some of that putty, and now I have a waterfall. What next? Great. Good news is we normally can get tanks within 24 hours, so we can move really quickly. So,
okay, so here's the other.
So basically, nothing really sticks very well to that plastic. Also, you think about the location of where your failure is. It's right at the bottom of the tank.
It's kind of bulging a little bit there too.
Pressure point. Yeah. You've got all that pressure of water. Yeah. So at the bottom, have got an absolute nightmare. At the top, you've got probably a good 10% chance, which is way more than at the bottom. Okay,
but I like that stuff. I just think it sells a dream.
Okay, so then let's see if we can get from 10% at the top of the tank to 10% at the bottom of the tank. Yeah. Okay, so the only potential way that I'd even consider doing that would be to actually fix it on the inside of the tank, not the outside of the tank, so that we've got the pressure that's pushing it into the error. Yeah. In which case, you're draining your tank anyway. By the way, if they give you 24 hours notice, you can isolate that tank, so that way you actually get to use the water instead of just waste it.
So here's the problem.
They give you they just turn up and wait there, don't they?
So the guy who realized we're not bodging this job, it's not going to work.
Yep.
And so I said, here's the problem. I'm going to have to water this grass. And he says, oh, well, we can isolate the tank. So we go up on the roof and look. There's no isolation valve, and there's no isolation valve downstairs.
That's okay. There's loads of ways around that.
Oh,
you'll have a float valve in it, don't you?
Yeah.
So just yank up the float valve and literally tie it off with a piece of string. Job done.
Okay, that's it. Yeah. Oh, well, I figured that's what I would do anyway.
Well, also, if you imagine, to be able to replace it, he's got to isolate it anyway. Yeah. So he'd probably isolate it at the DEWA valve. Yeah. In which case, why wouldn't you do that now?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So there's lots of options. That's always doable. Yeah. Now, the good news is, because you do water your grass manually, were it to come to it when they forget, because they will. Yeah. When they come with the tank, they've got the initial process of getting the tank on the roof. At that point, you could be watering like you've never watered before.
Exactly.
To get rid of all of that water onto your garden. So that can work. Next thing, size of the tank. Roughly your height or more?
It's just a little bit taller than me.
Okay. Is it portrait or is it landscape?
Portrait.
Okay, so in which case you're talking probably, that's a big tank.
That's a giant tank.
So I think it's probably by like maybe a 600 to 800 gallon tank. So that's a big beast. Now that is slightly bigger. We would normally rope up a 500 gallon maximum onto a roof, and that's doable. But then again, we would do that with 4 guys. Right. If 5 guys, the best burgers in the world.
Murdiff City Centre, if you're in Dubai, and all over the United States of America, where we've got some great
we've got one in downtown as well.
You got one in downtown?
Yeah, 5 guys, the best burgers in the world.
And fries are good too.
The fries are excellent.
We are more than open to in podcast sponsorship, by the way. And
I don't know how people would get that idea, James.
The 5 guys and SpeedX and
Ace Hardware
are all going to say, but you're already giving it to us for free. Why would we spend any money?
Oh no, we're just demonstrating. This is a one-off. We don't normally do this.
Okay, that's right. Right.
So on that basis, you want some more of this? You've got to get in touch. Right. Where were we? Oh, yes. So with 5 guys, the best burgers in the world, in the van, they may well be able to lift it. But it will be, you won't want to watch. You won't want to be stood underneath.
So, I mean, are they going to rope it up onto the roof? Is that...
That sounds like this might be the route that they're planning.
Okay.
Well, the way we would do it, in all honesty, is a crane. And you can't do a crane off a vehicle. You need a specialist crane which is about 900 dirhams in itself to do that.
So they probably won't do that, but they easily could, because I've got a wall right beside my villa, which happens to be where it's hard packed and people drive up and down an alleyway. So easily a crane could just back in, put it on the top, lift it to the roof. Hey, Bob's your uncle.
Well, we found that basically the crane prices seem to be the same no matter what size crane you get. Okay. So we ordered the biggest thing that can basically lift swimming pools and portable buildings.
I wonder if they'd let me use it.
So
just for some fun.
Oddly enough, I don't think they would. I've got no idea why, James. We have to have all sorts of liability insurance and this kind of stuff just to physically get one into a development, which we do on a frequent basis. But yeah, so for that, we would crane it. The other problem with the vertical rather than the horizontal is it's much more difficult to rope.
Right.
in terms of the physical getting hold of the darn thing is a pain in the neck. So there are many issues in that process. I'm not saying it's not doable.
Yeah.
We just prefer a slightly easier and safer route on the whole to getting it done.
I mean, I know that they're, because of the measurements they've taken, and that their goal is to replace it with like, but they could easily put a landscape version in. Like, I don't see why it changes anything.
It'll be so underneath the tank. Normally, you'll have a base.
It is on a base,
right?
That is
and
made
that
for
base size is really what determines it on the whole.
Okay. So
when you start having to create extensions to bases, it all gets a little bit spooky.
That. Yeah, no, there is a base, so they'll do like.
Yeah, that sounds logical. But again, an 800-gallon tank is huge.
It's big.
So, but however, it depends. When you're watering the garden, I wonder how quickly you run down that tank.
I have 2 tanks, so I run down I've got a tank on the ground floor and one up above.
So that ground floor one is pushing to the roof one, and therefore it's only which of those tanks is the smallest. Versus
the same size.
But if you imagine, then you've got the pump rate that is going.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to test that out. I'm going to rope up the float valve and see how much water comes out, because
you're actually in a better position than most, because in effect you would need to get through the one on the roof and at least 1.5 of the one on the ground before you would run out of water normally. Because yours is pumped, so therefore it has better pressure and will be a quicker fill of the one on your roof than a standard underground tank. Equally, the one on the ground floor will be filled by DEWA, so it will have less pressure than the one on the roof anyway. So, but you'll do just fine. But the point being, you could definitely survive a 600-gallon, 500-gallon tank without any problems whatsoever.
Well, we'll see what happens. I will keep you informed, because they're in the process, so they're ordering that tank for sure.
We've got an interesting one on ours actually. When we fill the swimming pool, so we quite often we forget about it for a couple of weeks and just straight
how much water
evaporation.
Is it just evaporation?
Yeah, just evaporation.
How much do you lose?
We lose about 2 inches a week.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Whew. It is quite a lot, but it's definitely not a leak, without a doubt. So we just throw the hose in it at 6 a.m, and by kind of 10 or 11, we're kind of right where it needs to be again. But then you look in the tank, and the tank has hardly moved. So we fill at the same rate. Because it's only a half-inch hose, it actually can still handle... DEWA can still handle the fill on the tank. It doesn't actually knock the tank down.
Great pressure in the ranches.
Yeah, it is. So good news indeed.
Yeah, very nice.
You may well have the same with yours though, which would mean you'd just be ongoing.
Yeah.
Depending on your position in the street.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Cool.
So that's where we're at.
Interesting one to say the least, without a doubt. Let's hope that you have no other maintenance issues going on at the same time.
I don't think so. Like, they've replaced other things recently.
Well, you sorted out your ACs, didn't you?
Yes.
And today we are going to talk about the difference between the options more than anything.
And what led to we're going to talk about the options for AC, but when you left after the last podcast, you said, we've been doing a lot of AC replacements.
Yeah, we have.
And I thought, wow, that's something I don't hear a lot about. So you said, let's talk about it. And in the meantime, you've got all sorts of information here that...
Well, we've been working on this for months and months and months. Because if we're going to do something, the level of research for when we're going to actually promote a new service or product or whatever it is that's new is quite dramatic. We don't just put things out there unless we're absolutely sure, A, we're very good at it, and secondly, that we've got the right suppliers in place to be able to do it.
And this is a niche in the market as well, replacing AC units that's not heavily...
So we've got a really unique situation right now, which is because we came out of the pandemic, property prices dropped dramatically. As a result, there were loads of people that, due to the pandemic, needed to get out of the market, and there were loads of people that still had the disposable income from pre-pandemic that had plenty of cash to be able to buy.
Right.
So what's actually happening right now is, and especially in the kind of the traditional expat developments in Dubai, you've got all these people that bought at the bottom, house prices went through the roof. They then have realised that I can actually renovate my entire property to the absolute top spec that I've ever dreamed of and still be in positive equity.
Man.
So as a result, right now, just on my street, I have 6. Yeah, I've got 6 properties that are being renovated right now, and another 8 that have been done in the last year, and that's out of 60 houses on my street.
Wow.
It's nuts.
That's crazy.
It's utterly crazy.
And is it the same groups that are doing the renovations, or are they each
No.
have? No.
That's really interesting. And the variation is unbelievable. We've got one on the corner of our street that every time I walk past it, I've got my head in my hands. How did you accept this? 2 doors up, there's quite possibly the best renovation that I've ever seen. Wow. And I'd be going with those guys on every day of the week. And, I've found out a lot more about that outfit since. And so the variation is just unbelievable, without a doubt. And this is on one street. And, on my dog walk, I must walk past 30 or 40 on the whole that are underway. I mean, it's just unbelievable, the scenario that we've got. So therefore, looking at that, we were getting more and more replacements, inquiries for single unit replacement. And then,
this is air conditioning.
Yeah, for ACs, yeah. And we traditionally had turned this kind of work down because it wasn't something that we were specialised in at the time.
I mean, it can be quite a complex adventure.
It really is.
I'm using the word adventure.
Yeah. And then it was interesting, as you well know, we've had a lot of new staff join us recently, and it turns out that there was a core of people that did this previously before We Will Fix It.
Wow.
That brought that skill in-house. And then additionally, we had a separate group of the guys that we brought in that were had been working for one of the main inverter manufacturers previously, so had that knowledge of this new technology in ACs that came inbound as well. And at the same time, a few of our senior guys had already been working themselves in their own spare time on getting themselves up to speed with this new technology also. So what we then did was this quite dramatic cross-pollination process where we literally held training sessions with the guys who had experience in inverter units. We then went into the field with those guys to teach our other guys on the processes, because it's radically different to conventional units.
Okay, I'm going to stop you for a second.
Yeah.
Before we go any further, there are people right now who are sitting at Five Guys and Fries or walking around Ace or, checking stuff out at SpeedX. We're always open for in-podcast sponsorship. And hey, we don't just throw the podcast out there. We're all over the internet.
Yes.
And we are even the number one choice for washroom listening and watching. Soon to be.
Hugely proud.
Hugely proud. We wipe out the competition.
Hey, we've got also... Well, that's opened up. What about... Andrex, the best toilet roll in the world.
There you go. Alcoze. We only use Alcoze products because you can get tea, toilet paper, you can get facial wipes.
They do toilet paper?
Yes.
Is it tea scented?
I was hoping. No, unfortunately. But I think it's the same material they use in the tea bags.
Okay, so what I've missed out, the major thing I've missed out is, what are the different types of AC?
Well, so this is the thing.
What's an inverter?
Well, that's it. Someone's listening inverter, and they're almost ready to go, what? And so I think everyone's familiar with a conventional AC unit.
Yes.
An inverter system is a new way of operating these things.
Okay, so what we're talking about, first of all, is those traditional split AC. So half of it on the roof, half of it indoors, and the way it cools is using gas.
Right.
Okay, so that's the basics of it. Now, the way a conventional unit works is the compressor is either on or it's off.
Right.
It has 0 and 100%. When it hits the temperature that you desire in the room, it turns off that compressor, at which point the temperature starts to increase a bit. When it hits the level that the thermostat says we need to cool again, it turns on that compressor back to 100% and away we go again. Okay, so that's the traditional route.
On, off, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off. Compressor goes.
Yes. Okay. So the way that an inverter unit works is initially when you go into the room, it does exactly the same. It goes on to 100% and it cools down that room as quickly as it possibly can to the desired temperature. It then turns off exactly the same way as a conventional unit works. Then when it gets to kind of half a degree over, it goes, you know what? I don't need 100% here. I only need 20 just to get it down that half a degree again. So this compressor can turn on to just like 20% of its power.
And still function at 100%?
Well, no.
I mean, it's 20%
enough.
power, but
all it's
still cooling.
all it's trying to do is to cool by half a degree.
Wow.
So therefore, it doesn't need all of its power to be able to do that. So it goes, I can just do a little bit, 20% here, and it will bring it down to the desired temperature again.
That's pretty good.
And then from 20%, it'll turn back off again. And then it'll wait for that rise for half a degree, so really closely monitor.
Yeah.
And it goes, okay, another 20% again.
So my electricity bill is suddenly reduced dramatically.
Right. So what they're claiming is 30 to 40%.
Really?
Yeah. Now, if you imagine that scenario, and they're claiming it, the scenario that would do that would be if you had your ACs on 24/7, 365. Okay, because you basically cooled the room down once. After that, you just got small amounts.
Yeah.
Now, that's not practically how we all live. So how we all live, it varies. It depends on you. But the more you traditionally use your ACs, the more effective the inverters would be in terms of reducing your DWA bills. Okay, it gets more complex than this.
Okay.
So the big disadvantage of inverters is the initial install. So you need a different supply pipe to basically be fed from the roof down to each of the inverter units than is already there.
Really?
To do that, instead of the one hole that you would traditionally have when you're replacing units for the indoor unit to be the old one out, the new one in lots of different locations, we need to stick holes in your roof so we can guide that pipe in the right direction where it needs to go. Okay. Additionally to that, it is going to take longer to be able to fit that inverter unit in, and it is a more complex process. Although the unit itself is cheaper because they're really promoting them at the moment, what the manufacturers have done is use a different business model.
Okay.
So what they've gone is, we need to get these inside people's homes, and then we'll get our money back through spare parts. So they've gone for a lower headline price in most instances, most of the brands. Yet when you come to get spare parts, they are 3 times the cost of conventional.
Now, do they tend? Well, we don't know, right? Because how long have we been selling these? But do you think that they will need more spare parts than a conventional unit?
Good question. I don't think that the traditional elements, which is fan motor, a different style of compressor, and the fan motor is both indoor and outdoor, will be, or the condenser coils or the evaporator coils. I think they'll be very similar to the conventional units. Where it is going to be different is probably the brains of the unit. So it needs more electronics, more panel control boards to make the thing all work, and they are very specific to that unit.
So you're not going to be getting knockoffs. If you're
you're
using a
definitely
Mitsubishi, you need the
knockoffs.
Mitsubishi. If you're using a Lennox, you need Lennox.
And you've got to get it from the main agent and hope that the main agent here has got the spare parts and the main agent in Korea or wherever else it's being manufactured.
So you're almost being pushed to go for a big brand that has a lot of capacity.
Well, imagine this from the sales perspective. You know fully well that this is a very large purchase for somebody to make.
Yeah.
So therefore you go, I'm going to reduce that cost straight off the bat, but I've got to make my money. So how am I going to do it? Well, what the customer is not going to be aware of is the costs of spare parts at a later date. And they're not even going to think about that for a couple of years.
No.
So therefore, that's how I'm going to make my money back. I'll make these crazy because they've got no other possibilities for being able to source these parts. So therefore, that's what I'm going to do. And that's exactly what they're doing right now. So the other problem is, if you imagine the way...
Okay, so the first challenge is we've got to change the piping that's going through the house or the villa.
So it takes longer as well. So rather than probably 2 days, you're looking at 3.5 per unit.
And you've got to run new pipes.
Yes.
So you're going to have the old pipes and the new pipes.
So you've got an additional materials cost for that as well. Next one, spare parts. Okay, which is a major issue. And also, because the way it works here with representatives' offices, because the spare parts are more expensive from the manufacturer, they're holding less. They're holding a lot less. Also, then there's not many of them in the market right now, these inverter units, so it doesn't make sense for them to hold decent stocks. They just order on demand.
With new housing developments, will inverter be what is being used in those? Do you figure?
It will be, without a doubt. However, it isn't yet. So that's still happening. Oh, actually, that's not true. There's a couple of developments that have used it. Yes, okay, I'll take that back. There are a couple, but it's still the higher end places that are using it.
So I could potentially save 40% of my electric bill for...
Yeah, practically speaking, I think you're looking at 20 to 25.
20%. What would be the motivation for me with 22-year-old machines that seem to be working pretty well, conventional units? Is there really, for a 20% savings?
But you compound that month on month.
Yeah.
It is actually, it's a decent,
I guess that is a chunk of change, isn't it?
But then you've got for conventional units, so a new conventional unit will be more efficient than a 22-year-old unit. It will use less power, without a doubt. Equally, though, you have the smart thermostats that are available now. Yeah. Now, this is interesting. The concept of a smart thermostat, okay? The way they're kind of designed defined in the market, rather, is these are the ones that link to your phone.
Right.
Okay. There are Honeywell thermostats that are a tenth of the price that do the same on-off efficiency as these smart thermostats. They just don't connect to your phone.
Yeah.
So, if that's really important to you, that you need to turn on and off your ACs from any place in the world, then smart thermostats are it. If not,
I have the Honeywells, by the way, in my place.
Yeah, well, actually, no, I've got the smart thermostats.
So you got the smart ones. I've got the Honeywells.
To be fair, mine were purchased to test for other people. And, I have done it just for entertainment's sake. From London, I have put the ACs on high and waited for the message. The AC's broken. Oh, 2 seconds, I'll fix it. Back down to 18. Oh, it's absolutely fine now. What did you do? The fun and games you play with your spouses, huh? So again, you can get some efficiency back by just changing your thermostat if you haven't already on a conventional unit. The other nice thing about the conventional units is if you are a supplier like we are and you know the units well, you can be speccing conventional units that even they're actually put together using components from different manufacturers that are available in the market.
Right.
Which is exactly what we're doing now. Because what it means is I'm not relying on that particular manufacturer for the spare parts. I can get them from anywhere, and I can get them in, frankly, minutes. Yeah. Which means that going forwards, that customer will have no problems with spare parts. And if, for any reason, we couldn't get them from one supplier, I've got another 15 where I can get those components from. And I like that as a concept. There will come a time, without a doubt, that they're phased out, but I don't think it is anytime soon.
So we've got this interesting period where the inverter system is coming onto the market, and people, like me, have to start making a choice. Like maybe it makes sense to go in for that replacement. But
a lot of suppliers are now not supplying conventional units. They've put all their eggs in the inverter basket, which tells me that's the way the future's going to be. But it's not as clear cut as would be stated. And what we're trying to do, and along with this podcast, is to inform people of the pros and cons of both systems for them to basically make the decision which way they want to go. Now, we've got a little bit of a duty of care to our customers as well, which most people are not doing right now. Most people are going, what is the cheapest units that I can supply my customers so I can get that headline price down? Well, those units either have supply issues or alternatively, the spare parts are A, insanely expensive, or B, non-existent, which is just the scenario how it is right now. We're not prepared to do that. So the two brands that we're using, which I can't reveal right now, but the two brands that we're using have for the inverter units, they have the best connection with the manufacturer of any supplier here in the UAE.
Oh, nice.
They're also one of the big boys. So on that basis, they have the quantity that is required to be able to continue with spare parts supply. They also have the most enormous warehouse in fact, they've got two, one in Rashidi and one in Sharjah, where they've got the space and quite clearly the financial muscle to be able to hold stocks of those spare parts. So we're sticking to a single inverter manufacturer and we're not going with anybody else. Equally on the, we touched on it, but on the traditional split AC unit side, we're going with a relatively new manufacturer. They do have developments here that they have supplied for, so they're very well established. But equally, we like the idea of the fact that their units are amalgamations of actually some of the best products in the market. So the best, literally the best compressors that are available. Their fan motors are pretty solid as well. So that way we can be pretty confident in the fact that even though they're a relatively new supplier, their gear is suitably top notch, and we can get the spares.
Maintenance stays the same even with the sand and all that? I mean,
no, not at all.
Oh, no.
Inverter units, if you got your average Joe Bloggs AC mechanic to come and service it, and they hadn't got experience of inverter units, they will blow the unit up with one service. There are a couple of classics that you do on conventional units that if you do it on inverters, you will blow the panel control boards and the electronics immediately.
So this instantly becomes a little bit of an alarm bell for me.
Exactly.
I mean, and it becomes a really interesting situation for you.
Yes.
Because you're installing them and you know how to work with them, so stick with the people who know the job.
Well, that's a benefit from our perspective.
Yeah.
So we spent a lot of time in the last 6 months training all of our boys on how to work with inverter units so that we don't make mistakes, without a doubt. It is, I mean, it's one of those where if they don't know, if they haven't done the training, they will blow it up. There is no two ways about it.
If you take out the control unit, you're done. I mean, you need to...
Oh, yeah, no, you're absolutely done.
That's a big cost.
Oh, big time, yeah. You're talking 4,000 or 5,000.
Yikes.
So it's a really difficult conundrum, and the only correct way to approach this from our perspective is to set it out for the customer so that they can make the right decision for them, and we can advise all the way down the way, but we're not going to advise either inverter or conventional. That's a decision for our customers to make, with us helping them along the way.
Ah, okay.
And that's where we are right now. I think in probably 4 or 5 years, that position may well change. Yeah. But it is only right now to be able to do that. Also, something that we haven't talked about is, because of the semiconductor crisis at the moment, the spare parts that are required for ACs were already stretched. You then think about the fact that
it's been semiconductors affecting this.
Yeah, so you then think about the last 3 years, which is when these inverters have really come in. And lack of semiconductors, well, that compounds because they all are new spare parts. They're not existing that have been sat in the market. So that compounds the issues right now with spare parts. But everybody thinks about that headline, this is how much I'm saving off my dealer bill. Yeah. Wow. And they're right to.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. But it is not as clear-cut as people are stating.
Is the maintenance side of these units, I want to go back to that for a second because you said it's a little bit different. Is it more time consuming?
No, it's not. It's a different process.
Okay.
So, and the same kind of schedules would work, but it's just a different process to go through to make sure you don't cause damage.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's a really interesting one, and I've really enjoyed the whole process of getting to understand the hardware side of things, and also we have to make some big calls because traditionally customers want to stick with the brand they've already got on their walls because they think that's the right route, and so it's a real re-education process to get them to understand that actually no, we've gone a different route. This is not for our benefit as such. We are looking after you on this one.
What do the technicians have any preference? Do they?
Yes. Oh, God. The technicians have been involved throughout. We've had a working committee for the last 6 months who have been not only giving us their recommendations, but we've sent them off to go and deal with the questions that have arisen because they've got that technical knowledge to be able to ask the additional questions when they get answers to partially what we're looking for. So it's been a real long-winded process to get to where we are, and we're kind of really happy with the end result. It's just the communication is really complex to a customer, and it requires them to be quite involved with the decision process.
Interesting. So looking forward, you figure this will be, given that manufacturers are jumping into this new direction, it ticks a number of boxes. It'll help reduce CO2 gas emissions depending on how energy is created, especially here, since it's natural gas typically or nuclear. This could be a good thing.
Yes, it definitely could. It's one of those where we're going to be bringing this out and pushing it probably in the next couple of months. So over the winter period, when people don't need their ACs so much, is a really good time to get them changed. So that's great. But also, if you think about the way Dubai has evolved and the traditional developments where we're all living, I'm living in a property that's now 20 years old.
Yeah.
And if you think about that as a scenario, ACs, your ACs, you got Lennoxes, so as far as I'm concerned, they'll last forever.
Yeah.
But they were all of the developments were built to a price point.
Yeah.
And therefore, unlike independents like yours, the ACs were built to a price point as well, or spec to a price point. So therefore, we are coming towards the end of their economic life. And I get asked the question frequently, would you replace or would you repair? For me, that scenario is a little bit like, would you buy a new car or would you keep on with your old car that's been very faithful but still requires a lot more mechanics? And it's something I'm sure you talk with Glenn about on a frequent basis. And I drive old cars because I like old cars. I love that whole process and being involved with it. But when you get to ACs, you don't have that involvement. You just have that cost. And that can be really irritating for people. The lack of reliability can be irritating for people as well. So what I say is, if it is a single component and you are not getting constant breakdowns, then stick with the old units. Maybe put a more efficient thermostat, either a Honeywell, or if you really want to control it from across the world, one of the smart thermostats. And you will get a benefit from that, normally 10 to 15% from that. If you feel like you need a replacement, doing it unit by unit is a little bit hodgepodge, and it will end up causing you more issues in terms of if you wanted to change technologies and you did one that way, that's going to throw off a technician on the roof in terms of his whole process and how he's operating. Oh, so for that one, not that one, I've got to use a different process. Our boys could handle it without a doubt, but there aren't many that could. So it makes it much more difficult. So you've got a decision to make. Oh, the other thing is the disruption. So if you're renovating your house, that is an obvious time where you go, you know what, let's future-proof this now, and away we go. And there's a lot of logic to doing that. But again, there's a decision to be made whether or not you're going to make such an investment in a home here or not.
Can you replace a conventional with an inverter system while leaving the conventional in operation? No. No,
definitely not.
Okay.
You need to be using the locations, both indoor and outdoor.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to. So that's the inconvenience. I mean, if you're going to do this, you don't want to be doing it in the middle of summer in Dubai.
No, absolutely. And then there's two different ways that we can go about it. We can go about it the economic way, where we are as efficient as we can possibly be, and we'll be there day after day after day until we finish it. In which case, to do that, because if you imagine the crane needs to be there, ideally we want to hit the crane in one hit.
Yeah.
So that's everything on the roof, everything off the roof. But everything off the roof means that for probably 2 weeks, if you were doing a 5-bedroom property, there is no AC in that property. Yeah. Okay. The other possibility that we could do is we could do a unit by unit. So we go down one unit at a time, which will mean, we've got a lot more, we're rammed on the roof, which we can manage, but it's rammed on the roof. We need 2 lots of crane time. And also the efficiency we'll be working at about 70% of the efficiency that we would be. So there's going to be additional labor charges. There's going to be additional crane charges if you do it that way, but you get to stay in your house.
Yeah.
But assuming that you can survive with a lot of disruption along the way. So there's lots of decisions to be made in the way that you go about it. And again, with the knowledge that we have, we can help people with that whole process, but it is not clear cut.
More questions than answers. It sounds exciting. One side of me is saying, if I'm getting a new place, I'm going to want to make sure it has an inverter system. Whether I would change what I've got now,
you haven't got enough problems with yours at the moment to warrant it.
Yeah, no, that's for sure.
So also, taking the advice of somebody that you trust is worthwhile. Yeah. Those Lennoxes are awesome.
Yeah.
You know, Nargis, as you well know, round the corner from you, I beg her not to upgrade her AC units because they are just built right.
They just keep working.
And they're just awesome. Yeah. And yes, you can make them more efficient by changing the controllers and the on-off functionality and that kind of thing. But they're just awesome.
They just work.
Yeah, and the modern ones, they cost reduced a lot of it. So they're not as reliable as those older units. Yes, they're more efficient. Yes, they use less power. But you know what? I would probably stick with those in that scenario.
And I think that's one of the things I like about you guys is you can have that conversation. And yeah, sure, you want to sell the units, but it doesn't necessarily mean everyone needs them.
Well, if you imagine, what we try to be is everything in the market.
Yeah.
So for us, whether or not you replace or repair, we're still able to cater for that. It's still part of what we do. So what that means, we actually can give totally unbiased opinions because we've got it covered anyway. And that's just a business aspect.
Business,
yeah. So, and what we're trying to do is to create long-term relationships with customers. So during their time in Dubai, they only go with WeWillFixIt and Essential Maintenance rather than transferring to somebody else.
Exactly.
That's what we're looking for. Yeah. But to do that, you've got to keep trust and you've got to be totally honest with people about what's right for them.
Yeah, there we go. And on that note, it's time that we say goodbye. This was a lot of fun.
It's a complex one, wasn't it?
It was a complex one, but I think we touched everything to give people
I hope so.
Some food for thought.
Good.
And I look forward to picking up this conversation again. Maybe we'll be at Ace Hardware or Five Guys and Fries or SpeedX.
Or Murder Fish and Chips.
But we are coming to you from the Rove Hotel Dubai's podcast studio at the moment. But we're willing to get on the road. Colin Thomas from Essential Maintenance and We Will Fix It Dubai. I'm James Pikeaway. This is the We Will Fix It podcast.